Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Joe Emilio Show. And as you see, I've got two guests, not one, not two. Wait, yes, two. I got two guests, Aziza Scheidereiter.
Something like that.
Okay. I've been practicing. And
Good try.
and Gideon Joubert, who you all know as Paratus. Yes, thank you, both of you, for joining me tonight. How you guys been?
I'm going to let Aziza answer this question first because I don't know if I'm capable of rational thought or speech. We're off to a
Gideon
great
and I
start.
might be in the same boat.
We might be your worst guests ever, Joe. Like from an energy point of view and from an interesting point of view, it's pretty bad. This is what a month of campaigning does to you. It's like a psychic vampire. It sucks you dry and makes you wish for like the void. But and we're winning. This is the worst part where I actually believe we're winning.
Well, no, I
think
think
on a positive note, you know.
Oh, I think we are winning. I hope we're winning. I've got to remain on a positive note. Well, let's start with the main topic at hand, shall we? And correct me if I misspeak here, but as far as I understand it, the government wants to amend the gun bill that currently exists in South Africa, to the point where it changes, a lot of things. One, you cannot, get a gun license claiming or for the reason of self-defense. And then apparently there's other changes as well that could affect security companies, could affect sports shooting, can affect hunting. Gideon, I'm going to start with you on this one. Can you give us a little bit more information for those who may not know still yet? How you don't know, I don't know, but there are people that may not know.
Okay, so yeah, I'll give you the big picture overview because otherwise we literally will be here all night, and I don't think any of us have the energy for that. So, apart from the fact that self-defense will no longer be a valid reason to own and license a firearm in South Africa, apart from the fact we're the sixth most homicidal nation on earth, we're about 85th pertaining in global rankings pertaining to the amount of guns that we do own. Our rates of sexual violence and rape is among the world's highest, if not the highest. Lots of failings of the SAPs that we'll get to later. That aside, if you're a sports shooter or a hunter and you were planning on still competing or hunting annually after this, you might as well forget it, because the restrictions placed on people who are dedicated sports shooters and dedicated hunters are completely unworkable. You'll no longer be allowed to reload your own ammunition. So if you're a sports shooter or a hunter, you're out of luck there as well. Security companies are hugely curtailed to the extent that they'll only be allowed to have handguns unless they kind of beg the police or the registrar or the minister to allow them to have semi-automatic rifles. So if you're anti-poaching, cash in transit, high-value assets in transit, the tactical, specialized high-risk tactical teams that are out there, all these sorts of guys, they will not be allowed to have the equipment they need to do their jobs unless, at great expense to the individual security companies, they go on an extensive look. They just quickly cut the nonsense. It's already incredibly difficult for a security service provider and an ordinary citizen to own a semi-auto rifle in this country. What they're essentially proposing is to make something that's very difficult even harder than it was before, to the extent that you're going to have security companies taking on, armed CIT gangs and people with AK-47s, criminals with AK-47s, and the best that they might have is a 9mm pistol because it's all that's available. So what the bill proposes is it's a total onslaught on the civilian firearm owning sector in its entirety. And if it does pass, it would eviscerate it to the point of non-existence. The so-called things that are still left over and allowed in the bill are so minor and so unworkable, and it would lead to such a total collapse of the various industries forward and backward linked to the firearm industry itself, that there would be no point. So this is, for want of a better word, the total civilian disarmament agenda in the form of a legal amendment or legislative amendment.
All right. This is pretty heavy stuff there. I just have a quick question to ask on that. What about those that already have their gun license for self-defense? What happens to them?
So when that license expires, according to what's proposed, you will not be allowed to renew it. So, the government doesn't indicate what they plan on doing if they're going to buy your gun back from you. I mean, the fat chance of that happening. There's a bigger chance of them just demanding unilaterally that you surrender your lawful property that has value and then just be out of pocket and lose it. Or try to sell it via dealership. But just to clarify this, right, if we ban self-defense as a reason to own guns and we curtail sport shooters arbitrarily to the number of guns they're allowed to own, there's not going to be a secondary market for pre-owned handguns. So no matter what is proposed, the person who owns that firearm will be unfairly prejudiced and will lose their money, will lose their property. That's essentially going to be the end result of this, no matter how we cut it.
Yeah, and as I understand it, you both own gun shops, correct?
Aziza does. Okay. She's my boss lady. I have to follow her lead. So if she tells me to shut up tonight, consider it done, man. I just do training, Joe. I just do training.
All right. Well, then, Aziza, I'll go to you next. How does this gun amendment bill affect gun shop owners, if at all? You need to unmute yourself.
Oh no, have we lost Ozzy? Please tell me we haven't lost Ozzy.
She's still muted.
Is she muted?
Yeah. On my side, it gets...
Hang on.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Thank God we got you.
There we go. Yay!
Yay.
Sorry, I've had too many Zoom calls today and now I can't function on this platform. Look, at the moment, this whole thing is pretty soul destroying for us as gun shop owners. You have unfortunately got a large part of clients who believe that this bill has already been passed, so our sales are down significantly, and those that own guns are panicking and asking us on a daily basis whether they should be selling their guns.
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of people would be in fear of that. I think, does the gun bill say anything about obviously it's going to change what you can sell in a shop, obviously, right?
It affects us greatly because so if people are not buying or able to buy firearms for self-defense, you lose that portion of the market. The bill attacks the option for people to reload their own ammunition, so that attacks a massive part of the general gun shop's income stream, be it components or loading presses or whatever is associated with that. It also impacts sport shooters on the number of rounds that they're allowed to be in possession of and the number of firearms they're allowed to be in possession of. So it's to understand the implications of the entire bill is hardcore. It affects every portion of our industry and every gun owner and non-gun owners.
You mentioned that you would lose a big portion of the self-defense side of the market. How significant is that? Is that like your main source of revenue? And I don't mean to make it sound so businessy, but I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, have you seen an increase in the recent months of people wanting to buy firearms for self-defense?
Definitely. Over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years, there's been a definite increase in that. But what's interesting is that it is comprised of a lot of women. So we see a lot of women who are arming themselves because, they're the ones who need it the most.
Yeah, I guess this will bring me on to a point that I did want to talk about tonight, which is, President Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, saying that there is a second pandemic in South Africa known as gender-based violence. I feel that making this move to disarm the citizens of South Africa, especially the women, is not in the best favor, or rather, I should say, I guess, not in the is not going to help the women of South Africa fight this so-called second pandemic, as he put it. What are your thoughts?
No, if anything, it's going to contribute. Already we have, as we previously discussed on the show, a major backlog in DNA that's being processed with regards to active court cases. And I would suspect that a portion of those, probably a large portion of those, are repeat offenders who are still not being prosecuted, still not being taken off the streets, and are still continuing to rape, murder, and hurt innocent people. So yes, taking away our firearms, and one of the best ways to defend ourselves, is probably not going to help that situation very much.
No, I agree. Gideon, I want to come back to you because there's been obviously a huge outcry, and I'm sure both you and Aziza have heard, like Aziza saying, our clients or customers are very worried at this current stage. Actually, that just popped up another question, Aziza. I'm going to go back to you very quickly. When a customer comes to you and says, "Oh, should I sell?" I'm sure there might be people watching right now who own firearms and are thinking, should I sell? What's the advice that you give them?
It's a difficult one. Well, firstly, there are not very many people who are going to buy them from you. So there's that. Not currently, at least. And secondly, it's not over until until the lady sings. I don't want to say fat lady because that's rude. But
you can say anything.
It's not over until exactly. Look, I mean, we have to give it a good fight. And the way I see it, the fight's only started, so we can, lay down our weapons quite literally and give up and make this reality, or we can choose not to accept it and fight it to the best of our ability.
I agree. All right, Gideon, now I'm going to go over to you. Once again, what there's been a huge outcry. We've seen this Beketele coming out and saying, one of the reasons why they want to change or they want to amend the gun bill is because apparently most of the guns are stolen from people who legally own them. I really want to get your thoughts on that comment that he made.
Well, you actually don't have to get my thoughts on it, because after he said that, a whole bunch of specialists who do sort of debunking and statistical work for a living came out and absolutely eviscerated him for making completely unsubstantiated, unqualified claims, which is exactly what he did. And unfortunately, it's become somewhat of a hallmark of his position as custodian of as Minister of the Police of that portfolio. Now, the outcry has not been remotely contained to just the gun-owning community, if one can even call it that, because gun owners really are just ordinary citizens who've made a specific decision pertaining their personal safety and security. There's a humongous overlap in civil society between the interests of firearm owners and the interests of people who've either not chosen to go down that road or have not yet chosen to go down that route, because there are every gun owner at some point wasn't one. And this we can actually see through the public participation process via DRSA. There's been, as of a few days ago, but today it really powered through that number. There have been more than 100,000 submissions through the DRSA platform, and the overwhelming majority of these submissions have been in opposition to the bill. A large section of those, in turn, reject the bill in its entirety. Of course, you're going to have a lot of people focusing on the self-defense angle, because in a country like ours, with the crime we have, the violence we have, and the history of violence that we've had over the past 2 or 3 decades, taking people's right to defend themselves away unilaterally and without consultation via a sort of legislative amendment is going to elicit a massive, very visceral reaction from people. So that's the sort of side of the topic that the media and people have really grabbed onto. But overall, the entirety of the bill is terrible, especially the document it's based on, which was a socioeconomic impact study that we can maybe unpack a bit later, because I was actually contracted to do an academic criticism or evaluation of it. And it's a terrible document. I mean, if I wrote that in my first year economics as an essay, I would have been failed and thrown out of UNISA and requested to please never, ever return to the faculty, because clearly scientific thought, reasoning, and rationale aren't my strong points. I would maybe do better, I don't know, as some sort of flat earth activist. So it was really an awful document, not just from its contents, but from how it was put together. Unfortunately, circling around back, seeing as what the minister said, what Gun Free South Africa says, what the socioeconomic impact study says, this isn't based on facts or reason. This attempt at banning or restricting firearm ownership, it is purely ideological. And it's an ideological conclusion that was made, and after the fact they're trying to find reasons to support it, which is why the reasons are so flimsy, and its entire house of cards is moving down into the foundations. And civil society has opposed this. I think it's the first time in my life I've seen so many various varied organizations that have got nothing to do with owning guns that have said, okay, this is a big line in the sand for us. And from there, there's a big battle still ahead, folks. It's not won and it's not lost. It's definitely not lost, but we need to keep the pressure up in order to win it decisively. And that is what the mission is.
You said that there's over 100,000 submissions at the DRSA website. Is there a specific number that you need in order to make sure the bill isn't passed, or how does that work?
No, not really, because there have been bills that have been passed with 7,000 submissions supporting it, and there are bills that have been rejected with 20,000 opposing it. Any number in a public participation campaign that's over 100,000 strong is hugely significant and basically impossible to ignore. And the thing is, even if government decides that they're going to cherry pick, as they have done in the past, certain submissions that support their position, it's so transparent. We will have a whole executive summary on the DRSA website immediately upon the conclusion of this process, that government can't lie. And they can, if they do lie, they can only get away with it if nobody holds them directly accountable. And I think the list, or the queue of people willing to hold them directly accountable, is very fucking long. It's like, pick a number and get in line. So it makes an incredibly strong foundational sort of document, if one can call it that, for a very powerful legal challenge. The thing is, though, and this is something people need to understand, challenging a bad law before it becomes an act is a million times easier than trying to challenge it after it has been proclaimed as an act. So acting preemptively is key. And
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's very important for people to know as well. Something I also want to chat to you guys about, and I feel it's very important because, guns, I think, since their invention, has always been kind of a controversial topic. You got people that are for them, against them, scared of them, love them, fanatic, not fanatic, and there's always that narrative when you talk about guns. I'm from the States. I live in South Africa now. I'm American, South African. I always bump into people that are like, oh, Americans are trigger happy. You guys are there's always a shooting in America. There needs to be stringent gun laws and stuff like that. But I think, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because guns, of any time there's a shooting, anytime there's anything to do with guns, there's always like this big hype around them, and the discussion of should we ban guns, should we not ban guns comes out. And you always hear from, I don't want to say that the entire left acts like this. There's quite just a group of people that say, you know what, guns are unsafe, guns need to be banned, We need to do away with it. And anybody that supports or is pro-gun is some kind of crazy right-wing, violent person. And I want, and you guys know the narrative that I'm talking about, I'm sure. I would like each of you to kind of give your thoughts on that mentality, because I feel that people need to understand that there are a ton, like, I think, Gideon, you once mentioned the statistic on our previous channel when we were talking about Paratus and everything, that the percentage of violent people that use guns is very small compared to the entire amount of people that own guns. The majority of people that own guns are law-abiding citizens that treat guns with immense respect. But yeah, Aziza, I'll let you comment first, and then we'll go over to Gideon.
So I muted myself for a change.
Yeah.
There we go. So interestingly enough, growing up, I grew up in a household where firearms were always around, and I grew up sport shooting and being exposed to, the safety around firearms and all of that. So going to high school, I was actively competing privately, well, within our organizations, on a sport shooting level. And at school, I was then obviously labeled as the strange girl that was into guns, and nobody could understand my viewpoint. I think they didn't quite understand how to approach this. Nowadays, there seems to be quite a shift, though. So that stigma has definitely changed a little. I have lots of circles of friends, and a lot of the circles of friends that I'm in are not pro-gun people. They're either not interested or they're anti-gun. I don't judge. Well, I try not to. But I would say in the last 2 or 3 years again, I've been approached by more and more people who previously either had a fear of guns or just were on the fence about it, who have now discovered that being in the country we're in and the crime being where it's at, they no longer have a choice but to possibly entertain the subject. And more of them have come on board and realized that at the end of the day, it is a tool, a sadly necessary tool to defend yourself. So I think I get what you're getting at, but I do think that the perception has changed slightly for the general person in South Africa. And I see it with a lot of women. So women who were previously totally anti-gun are now leaning towards finding out more or actually getting a firearm for self-defense. I'd like to also say that, I don't think that South Africa has a gun problem. I can't comment on America because I don't live there. But I think we have various other problems that contribute towards the violence in this country, and it's not guns. The problem stems from various other factors that we're all aware of. So to eradicate guns or to ban legal firearm owners from owning guns is definitely not going to solve that problem. If anything, it's going to make things worse.
I agree. Gideon, your thoughts?
I'm just going to go do a very cold statistical take on this. So there's roughly 20,000 murders in South Africa every year. This has been increasing, but let's stick to a nice round number, 20,000. Less than half of those, typically between 37 and 47%, are committed by use of a firearm. But let's be super conservative and say half of all murders in SA are done by use of firearms. There are 3 million, roughly 3 million legally licensed gun owners in SA. That means if every single murder is committed by a unique individual who is a legally licensed firearm owner, that means even if licensed gun owners were going out there committing half of the murders by use of their guns every year, which they don't, that means the total number of gun owners that are committing murders are 0.33%. And that's not even half a percent. We've zoomed in on this topic. We have tried ascribing for years, no, for decades, a false causal direction that firearms in civilian hands are a driving force for crime and violence in South Africa, that they're a driving force for crime and violence in the world, which is not true. For the simple reason that, I mean, you can go and do cross-country comparisons. That's boring. Let's just actually look at the facts at hand, that the drivers of violence and crime in South Africa is we have a huge amount of social friction. That social friction results in the fact that we've got a terrible economy with terrible politics and terrible political and economic policies. This has a social and socioeconomic impact. Okay, we have inequality. We have one of the highest rates of unemployment in the world. We probably have the highest rate of youth unemployment in the world, which is sitting at 75%. We have these entire lost generations of kids, now adults, that have no real primary or secondary and certainly no tertiary education, that have no hope. We have people that have been abused as children in poverty-stricken, overcrowded, lack of hygiene townships where they've been introduced to violence at a very young age, because let's be honest, violence is an extreme negative externality of the extreme poverty these people have been finding themselves in, and we've had generations of this. All of these things are feeding in to an almost subculture, or rather primary culture of violence. That is not a particularly easy problem to solve, because it would mean that government need to take a step back and say every single policy decision they've made over the past 27 years has been almost an abject failure and has fed into and contributed to the problem that we presently have. That level of introspection is just not going to happen. They want sexy fast food solutions, so they would rather take an inanimate object that is politically controversial, the ownership of which is something that they think they can easily marginalize, and then target this group of people and say, you know what, you're actually part of the problem. Because we all know if they ban civilian guns in totality tomorrow by the stroke of a pen, this is not going to be a more peaceful country by Sunday. Definitely not this Sunday, and definitely not Sunday in 10 years, and definitely if you're looking at Jamaica, not Sunday 40 years down the line. Because that is not how this works. And that is part of this problem, is political dishonesty for whatever reason.
Beautifully said, man. I couldn't agree more. I do want to, however, push back a little if I could. There's one thing that I found out in my research about this topic that I was surprised about. Apparently, America is the only, I could be wrong, but this is what I was told by an advocate, is the only country that in their constitution, it is a right to bear arms. Apparently, South Africa doesn't have that. It's not in the constitution of South Africa, but it doesn't mean that it's not a right. I want to make that very clear. Apparently, the South African constitution states that you have a right to protect yourself, to protect the right of life, as it's called. And the reason why I bring this up is because earlier today you mentioned them just now. Is it Free Guns South Africa or something like that? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was them. They put out a poll which was laughable.
Well, it's not Free Gun South Africa, because
Gun free, sorry.
look, we'd still hate them, because as dealers we don't believe in giving free guns. You need to pay for the bloody things, okay? So any person coming out here giving free guns is just destroying our industry. Stop it, please, okay?
Well,
Unless it's a snubby.
A snubby.
Unless it's a snubby.
Unless it's a snubby, in which case, can we give you ours and you can go hand them out? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I correct myself. It's Gun Free SA, who we don't like that much. But they put out a poll saying, fact or myth, is in South Africa, gun ownership for self-defense is a right. And the way they worded that, because they want people to, they actually answered it themselves afterwards. They said, final results are in. Thank you all for your votes. It's a myth. Gun for self-defense in South Africa is a privilege regulated by the law. I really would like your guys' comments on that. Aziza, you go first.
Okay, I am no legal expert, so I'm not going to give a legal opinion on it. But yes, we do have the right to life. And the comment, and Gideon can correct me if I'm wrong, the comment that was made by a judge regarding it being a privilege was not made as an official comment. It was I forget the term. Gideon, can you help me out?
It's called an obiter remark, or I think that's how
There we
you
go.
pronounce it. It's basically his opinion. It's not. It has no legal binding at all.
Yeah. So to state that that whole poll was just a setup from the beginning, so I didn't join in on that. But it's a silly comment to make. We have a right to life, and it so happens that our firearms enable us to maintain that right to life. So there are various legal opinions on this, and I'm pretty sure that a lot more of them are going to surface from a legal standpoint fairly soon. But I'm pretty sure that we will find a lot of the aspects of the current amendment bill to be fairly unconstitutional.
Absolutely. Gideon?
Yep. Just to add to what Aziz says, like our constitution doesn't state that you've got the right to have children. It doesn't state you've got the right to breathe. It doesn't state you have the right to do a lot of things that you actually do have the right to. So I think people, especially Gun Free SA, either don't understand the Constitution, which I doubt, or they're deliberately misrepresenting how constitutional rights work. And I've just done it myself. There's no such thing as a constitutional right. It's just a right. The Constitution exists to protect your right from infringement from whatever third party, but especially the government. It's basically a not to do list to tyrants to go, listen, these people have these rights. Don't tread on them. I mean, they do tread on them because we don't follow through and stop them from treading on them. But the Constitution is just a wish list, and it's not exhaustive, and it doesn't have the final say in the matter. So we can have technical arguments about that the right to own guns is an implicit right, which sure it is, but ultimately it's also a right that has its foundations in rhyme, reason, philosophy stretching back millennia. And, you have to really do incredible mental gymnastics to get to the point where you say owning a firearm is a privilege, not a right. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware we lived in a feudal state where we're governed by monarchs and barons and these sorts of people where I work the land as a serf and they get to extract taxes from me to their heart's content. And the fact that I have a pitchfork or a sword is something that they allow me to have. We live in a liberal democracy with all the historical foundations of being a liberal democracy. So no, it definitely is a right, and they need to go and have another poll, please, because maybe then after the second poll they might understand better.
One would think that they would have given up on their polls by now because it never quite seems to go the way that they planned.
Maybe
Didn't they run a poll? What was it, about 2 years ago, about whether or not people should have firearms for self-defense, and it went completely pear-shaped.
The one where they
That's the
said,
problem.
how would you feel if your partner had a gun, safer or afraid? And then 98.7% out of like 50,000 participants said safer. It was.
well, that's pretty much the same that
That's
happened
the
here.
problem, is that you're dealing with,
It's like it's
yeah.
92% safe fact. I can't really see it on my phone, but yeah.
What annoys me is that they're not an organization that speaks for the masses.
No.
They seem to think they're speaking for the masses, but they're speaking for international funders. And it upsets me that you would take such a stance based on old statistics that came from goodness knows where with no background, and you're trying to make a decision on the behalf of millions of citizens when you yourself sit behind closed, sealed doors with armed response. When the rest of us have to go to work, we don't have access to all the security that some of these individuals have access to. And even so, you have poorer communities where I feel that they are being greatly misrepresented and disadvantaged in all of this. They're not even being considered, and they're the ones that need to be considered the most.
No,
Can I
absolutely.
just jump in and
It's
add to Aziza here?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Because she rightly points out they don't have a popular support base. Let's say that doesn't matter. Let's say you don't need a popular support base if your arguments are good and solid and have a rational and reasonable foundation and are good philosophically. Country South Africa's arguments are cuck. It's. I mean, they don't have the support base and they have shit arguments. So definitely, like deep six that. No. It's not going to work, guys.
Absolutely. Look, I don't pay them much attention, but the mainstream media does, and I saw that poll today, and I think you guys saw my comment on that, so it's fine, and I'll give my 2 cents as well. When when an individual or people live in a country where the government has failed them immensely on every single level, from providing water, electricity, and safety, it is those citizens' last line of defense to be able to bear arms to protect themselves from the failures of the government, who has failed to protect them because their law enforcement is corrupt. Yes, there are some good apples in the system, but unfortunately, as Andrew Whitfield has said himself, the barrel is rotten, and it's so rotten. It's unbelievable. The backlog that has increased from 170,000 untested or I don't know what the correct word is, but basically 170,000 DNA results, or not results, sorry, samples, that's the word I'm looking for. Samples has increased now to over 200,000. There's no end in sight for that, or resolve. And also the firearm system that doesn't even track guns anymore. That is failing beyond belief. And yes, we know about CETA, and it's failing miserably as well. I'm looking for someone who's willing to come onto the show to talk about that system, but so far I haven't heard good things about that system. So at this point, yes, it is a right for every single South African to be able to protect themselves from the tyrants that are the ANC. It looks like some of you want to say something. No. Okay, cool. No worries. Very quickly, while we have quite a few viewers with us, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, with me is Gideon Joubert, part of Paratus. Please go check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. Great information on guns. And of course, I have with me Aziza Scheidereiter. I'm trying so hard. Owner of CHS, and please go check her out as well. Very quickly, guys, there is a protest coming up, which I believe, I'm not sure who's behind it, but I'm going to put it up on the screen very quickly. Protest against the Firearms Control Amendment Bill, Hands Off Our Guns. Join citizens protesting against civilian disarmament and the self-defense gun ban. Everyone is welcome. It is going to take place in front of Parliament at the corner of Roland and St. John Street in Cape Town. When? The 1st of July, which is a Thursday at midday, from 12 to 3. Who would like to tell us a little bit more about this? Why? Well, we know why it's happening, but what would you say to people who are on the fence about maybe coming through?
I suppose I have to stick my hand up for this one because I actually organized this thing on behalf of Gun Owners SA. So it's their protest. But actually, no, let me rephrase it. It's not GOSA's protest. GOSA organizes it. It's a protest that belongs to everybody who wants to make their voice heard. and a memorandum of objections will be handed over to a representative of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police on that day, whomever is willing to accept it, unless they all pitch to accept it, which would be perfect. And it really is just to have a bit of a physical display of objection to the whole thing, because it's really cool that we've got 100 and something thousand plus submissions rolling in, and they're keeping rolling in by the thousands on a daily basis. It's something else to see human faces physically in the so-called meat space, doing something about it. And unfortunately, with all the COVID protocols and stuff, like, it's limited to 100 people. But I mean, if we have the official gathering of 100 people, and supporters are coming in small little clusters that they're allowed, that aren't associated with the demonstration, just to cheer or throw confetti at us, or walk past with a poster, they're of course more than welcome to do that, because the official protest is limited, but individuals expressing themselves is not limited. So please do come and show a little bit of skin, and not that kind, the kind we want to see in public. Please, like, let's not add more charges to the long shit list that I'm already on at this stage. But come and just join in, make a corny poster, scream something at Louis Botha's statue, whatever, but please be there. It would be really cool to have like 100 solid people there, and whomever else comes past.
Yes, I'm glad you answered that, because Daniel said only 100 people were allowed. He was wondering about that. There are rumors that unfortunately, the president will be addressing us sometime this week, because there are rumors of a even stricter lockdown. So 100 people, maybe just 50 people. However, let me reassure the viewers here is that this channel will be covering that protest. So even if you can't make it, or you're afraid to come out, that's fine. That's up to you. You can keep an eye on this channel, and you will get a live feed of the entire protest. And the only thing we ask is that you share it. If you can't come to us, well, then we'll bring the protest to you, and you can share it with everyone, and and everyone can watch it from the comfort of their homes, and just keep on sharing it, and let people see that people are mobilizing and making a fight. Basically, the government, I think, tries its best to get people to shut up, but we have the technology. Yeah. So, Aziza, is there anything you want to add to that, or are you going to be there at the protest?
One of us has to keep the doors open at the shop.
Good answer. Good answer. That's cool. You'll be there in
I'll
spirit.
be joining in on the digital platform.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. So, guys, I think we've covered everything. Is there anything that you feel we haven't covered yet? Is there anything that you feel is important to mention?
Nothing that I can come up with. Azzy?
Sorry, Gideon. I would say I'm starting to sound like a Tupperware salesman with this. This is a discussion that has to take place with those nearest and dearest to you, but it's also a discussion that you have to take from outside of your comfort zone. So a lot of people still don't understand this amendment bill. They don't understand that it hasn't actually been enforced yet. And there are a lot of people who are, agreeing with us that are not gun owners. So if you have the opportunity and you're at a braai that you're not technically supposed to be at the moment, or you find yourself in the company of others, bring it up as a topic of conversation, and mention the Dear South Africa platform as a platform where people can at least make their vote, whether it's for the bill or against the bill, whatever floats your boat. But it's a discussion that has to be kept live at the moment. We can't become complacent on this.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Yes, look, I think that's the best way that people will find out about this. I think some people are still disillusioned and think that the government's not going to do that. They're fine. No, they will. They definitely will. And one important thing for those of you that might be doubting that this bill will happen or if it's been blah blah. Besides the things that we've mentioned here tonight, Gideon and Aziza, the thing that I seem to ask myself. And Big Daddy Liberty has also asked this question, and I pose it to the viewers now. Ask yourself, why? Why would the government want to do this? What are they planning that requires them to disarm citizens? Let me tell you something. It's not going to be good. It's going to be something that you are going to wish you knew someone with a firearm or you had a firearm yourself. No government in history who has implemented the same rules and laws has ever seen a happy ending. So we should take this very, very, very seriously, and line in the sand needs to be drawn. So ask yourself.
Well, contemporary example, in 2012, Venezuela went down the same path. I mean, we know exactly how that went down, and we can still see to this day, 9 years later, how it continues to go down. So the National Democratic Revolution is not a conspiracy theory. It's a well-documented philosophical foundation of the present state of the ANC. And I have to give it to Jacob Zuma. I gave the man a lot of shit when he was still president, but he was interested in a lot of things that weren't in my best interest, but he was never interested in taking my guns. It's a very socialist angle to disarm a civilian population. It's very authoritarian. And it is most certainly not a misplaced warning to say, especially if you zoom out on the current assault on civil liberties. If you look at the fact that they're trying to push through legislation that would make conversations like we're having right now illegal, for the simple reason that you are not an approved broadcaster, Joe. You do not have a license to broadcast. Therefore, because the government doesn't approve of you having an opinion and sharing it with other people on the internet, we would not be allowed to be here tonight. This, if they passed that piece of legislation, this would be a no-no. It's the same with goodness, I've lost track. I mean, let's not forget about the expropriation without compensation that applies to all property, not just land. The national health insurance bill that would essentially destroy the private healthcare in this country completely and socialize medicine. The SAPS amendment bill that would seek to centralize all policing, municipal, regional, provincial, metro, everything under the single banner of the SAPS that is in the middle of a 20% budget cut at the present moment. So that can't possibly end badly. You look at a piece of proposed legislation. Well, even worse, Aziza spoke of fat ladies singing earlier. She obviously very cleverly did not. With this whole Papuda Act that's coming in, anyone who perceived offense from her even hinting at fat ladies singing could bring criminal charges against her, could see her locked up for 15 years, which is all well in George Orwell's 1984, this re-engineering of common everyday language was called newspeak. We are living in a world of newspeak. Every single thing we were warned against for the past 100 years is busy manifesting in one way or another through the legislative process in SA right now. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's real. If you don't have a gun, I recommend you come see us for training and buy one. Firstly, because we need the money, and secondly, you might need the gun.
Yeah. It's very true. But I mean, Gideon, you talk about conspiracy theory. The thing is, it's not. I mean, again, if you look at history, USSR did this. They implemented these things. You couldn't, they dictated who watched what, who said what. Even artists were not allowed to criticize the government, or otherwise they would see jail time. This isn't unheard of. It's been done many times before in history, and it's amazing how people seem to forget. And the USSR wasn't that long ago. and it's crazy. But anyway, I just quickly want to address one of the people watching. Sorry, I didn't address it earlier. Sean giving a super sticker, 70 Rand from Sean. He gave a super sticker, so thank you so much for that 70 Rand, Sean. For the rest of you, yes, thank you so much. If you want to highlight your comments, please give us a super chat. Also goes a long way to supporting the channel and keeping me being able to do interviews and also going on the ground to document some of these protests, which I will be doing on the 1st of July. I will be documenting that protest so you guys can share it and tell people and let people see that there are law-abiding citizens that really care. And I want to set the record straight here. I don't own a gun. Okay? Never have. I probably will one day. I've shot a gun. It's a lot of fun. But I did it in the company of gun owners who respect the weapon and great instructions, and it taught me a lot doing that, and it taught me that don't judge a book by its cover, because you could see, and like again, these left like to label everybody under the same label, crazy person with a gun, but the people that own guns are usually the ones that just want to protect their family more than anything else. And in a country, as Gideon mentioned earlier, in a country that we live in today, unfortunately, the government has led to this unstable situation that we find ourselves in, where any woman, man worth their salt should have the right to bear arms and protect their family. So I stand with the gun owners. I stand with Aziza and Gideon, and I do not want to see this bill go through. I did sign the DRSA. It's not a petition, right? It's a what's the right word for it?
No, it's a public participation platform. So what you actually did is you tendered your submissions to the Civilian Secretariat of Police, but you did it via the DRSA platform, which means your submission is now counted, it's tracked, and it will be publicly made available and published as part of the executive summary. So nobody can lie and say, but Joe Emilio did not say anything about this, because you did, we know you did, and we can prove it. So well done, good job.
Yeah, no, I did it immediately because again, I'm not ashamed to admit that this is unacceptable, and as we've said already, a line needs to be drawn. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing taboo about it. At the end of the day, we need the right to protect ourselves. It's plain and simple. And all South Africans need to wake up, man up, even if you're a woman, man up, and stand up against this horrible, horrible decision that they're trying to do. If there's any questions, because we have a few minutes left from the audience, if there's any questions you feel you want to really know, we've got just a few short minutes. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, now is the time. And while you're doing that, I already have one from Daniel asking, gun never, ever killed a soul, ever. People, on the other hand, well. Okay, it's not a question. I saw a question mark. I thought it was a question mark. I don't know if it was a question. It's more of a statement. But he's right. What's that old saying? Guns don't kill people.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Yes, that's the one. So yeah, I think I'm just going through the comments very quickly. I don't think there was any questions missed, but like I said, guys, if there are any questions that you have right now, please do submit them. Gideon, why the 1st of July? Is there any significance to that date?
Well, I would have preferred the 4th of July just because it's cool, right? But people don't come to protests on weekends. You have a much better chance of catching someone pitching in the week, like on a Thursday, and like as it winds down, which seemed like strategically a good decision in like the last week, just for that last little boost of media space before the protest ends. And then from there we go into a different phase with the thing. So 1 July seemed like a good day.
Basically, Gideon just wants to skip work.
This, ooh, I think I'm
He doesn't
now,
know what to say.
Don't forget my chocolate tomorrow.
and your wine and chocolate.
I okay. Is there a deadline, by the way? Like, what is the deadline? I'm sure there's a deadline. That's very important. What is the deadline for people to submit to
4
DSA?
July, actually.
4th of
4th of
July.
July.
Okay. Well, that's ironic. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I believe there is a link to the DSA link in the description below. If there isn't, I will put it. I will check right after we're done here, and I will put it. So please go sign the public participation form. Am I right? Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
that's
Good.
it.
Public participation form from DSA. Please go and submit your name. And then I did see a few statements here that I'll quickly read. Yanni Vandervalt saying, also taking my gun away and having me rely on the police is like taking my fire extinguisher away and having me rely on the fire brigade. Yeah, pretty much. That's a fair assessment. And then Linda Van Rooyen asking, does it make a difference if one signs more than one of these petitions? Because I believe DA also has a petition out there.
They do. They've got a petition. AfriForum's got a petition. The Freedom Front Plus has a petition. And the Institute of Race Relations also has a type of public participation campaign but theirs go directly to the portfolio committee, not the civilian secretariat. So at this stage, only DSA goes to the source or the originator. But again, make use of those petitions. I mean, it's free. If you had to fill all of them, you might be busy for 5 minutes. I mean, make a cup of tea and just make the most of that experience. I don't know. It's a politically incorrect comment here, but if you can spend 40 minutes on Pornhub, you can spend 5 minutes clicking through these submissions and just getting the job done, please, guys. Then you can go on to Pornhub.
Gideon,
Okay?
are you talking from personal experience?
No, I was going to say that.
Never. I spend way longer on Pornhub than 40 minutes. Like, that's amateur.
I'm making a note to our IT department to check usage on Gideon's IP
never.
address.
I'm professional, never at work. And if it is at work, it's on my cell phone, right? So there you go.
Woo! Okay.
I can confirm he does not spend a lot of time on his cell phone because he never answers calls.
I'm not sure if Graham is serious about this, but I'll ask it regardless. No firearms at the protest, but what of traditional weaponry? No.
Well, as a Frenchman, my traditional weaponry is escargot, so I'll be bringing some of that.
Okay. Now I'm not going to go there.
Well, Aziza, as a German's traditional weapon is heavy artillery, so there's no parking space for that. It's Cape Town. Can't parallel park that shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
No panzer for me.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, it's not a march, eh? You're meeting right there at Parliament. There's no walk, there's no march, nothing like that.
Yeah. No, people still are too unfit after lockdown. We're not expecting that much. Just stationary protest, guys.
Stationary protest. All right, cool. Man, the Pet Zoo film crew asking, oh, so martial arts is not allowed on the protest. Oh. No. It's going to be peaceful, guys. Peaceful. Peaceful protests. And remember, if you want to also demonstrate your disdain for the current government, you can find one of these shirts on rebelstoreza.com. Please go check it out. Wear it at the protest. Yay. I was going to say a mandla, but it felt wrong.
Well, considering that they just disbanded the MKMVA, I think there's a lot of people who are shouting a mandla futsek ANC right now. You might just be ahead of that curve, Joe. So just go with it.
All right, cool. All right, cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're pretty much out of time. We got 60 seconds left. Let me just quickly thank my guests, Aziza Scheidereiter, and I am just going to go with it, and and Gideon Joubert. Once again, please check out Gideon Paratis. Link is in the description, as well as Aziza. Check out her shop, CHS. Please support these guys. They know what they're doing. They're great at what they do. I still need to cash in on my offer to visit you guys, and I promise you I will. Probably at this point, it's probably going to be only in September or October, because who knows what's going to happen in the next week. But I do wish you guys...
Send your fans to us. We'll gladly take their hard-earned money and give them things that they need.
Yes.
Not don't need, things that they desperately need in return for it. It's a very, very, very straightforward capitalist transaction.
Exactly. Let's keep that going. Well, Aziza and Gideon, if there's anything you want to say in closing, you can let people know where they can find you. So Aziza, let people know where they can find you. And do you have a website people can go to?
Yes, I'll be the first to admit that the website is currently horrendous. So it is probably best to rather phone us, or pop us an email, or even better, come and pop in at the shop. I will send you a link to the website, which has all our contact details on it. Come and have a chat. Even if you're not a gun owner, we also do outdoor gear, climbing gear, hiking gear.
Training.
We're not limited to training. Not only limited to firearms. And I think Gideon's done a pretty good sales pitch for us so far.
Most importantly, the shop's name is CHS Guns and Ammunition in 159 Main Road, Somerset West. So that is other shoulder. There you go. There you go. I was going like, what is Aziza doing?
Ek is regtig bedonderd.
Awesome.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
It has been a long day, but this is a great way to end. So come visit CHS Guns. We've got coffee. It's not free, but it's good. And but our conversation and our sparkling personalities and sharp wit and no sarcasm is free. That you get for free.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. There's a question: is Paratis on Telegram?
It is, but it's a terrible channel because I'm like 7,000 messages behind, and I don't have time to moderate it, so other people are moderating. It's a mess. Don't find me on Telegram, please. Like most of my communications platforms, it's terrible.
It's now come to the point where people phone the shop looking for Gideon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not for work related. Well, not for gun shop related work, at least.
But you will find me physically there most days. It's just been a bad month at the moment.
All right. Well,
I've been saving you wages, Azzy.
This is true.
Well, I know.
No, but in all honesty, Gideon fights a good fight, and
yes.
Yeah.
No,
well, so does the boss lady. So
he's trying to fist bump you, and you're not.
Yeah, but she's leaving me hanging. I'm fisting my boss. Anyway, let's.
No, man.
Okay. On that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, it was great. I'm somewhere ending Joe's show on this behalf because I'm about to bail.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you so much for the comments. Thank you to my guests, Aziza Scheidereiter and Gideon Joubert. Keep an eye on everything. Keep an eye on Gideon. Keep an eye on the websites. Keep an eye on DRSA and this channel. Let's fight this fight together, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back tomorrow evening. And if I don't see you before then, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.